1, 2, 3, 4.
Hi everyone. This is Jewish Talk, coming to you from NASA Community College at 90.3 WHPC. We're also streaming on nccradio.org. This program is later archived on all your favorite platforms, including Spreaker.com. This program, you can't believe this, is repeated on Sunday evenings at 11 p.m. So hi there, my name is Michael Wolf. No, it is Rabbi Perl. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This all depends on when you are listening or watching us. And Oiga Valt, you can go right now. You're listening on radio, go over to your computer and join us on Facebook Live at the page of WHPC or my own page, facebook.com/Anshul Pearl. Give us a comment. Let us know what you're thinking. Tell us where you are listening or watching from us. So, hello on the radio. You know my jingle. Hello online and hello to the world. So, today we have a number of important issues to discuss. In the first, of course, is it okay to celebrate the elimination of an arch terrorist? And I want to say yay to my friend Richard D. Ruttenberg, who is joining us from Florida. If you say Florida, they don't believe you. You have to say it like a Brooklynite. Florida. Let us know where you are watching or listening to us, and we'll be happy to recognize you. So is it okay to celebrate the elimination of an arch terrorist? We will be talking a number of issues, of course, to include how we are now on the Jewish calendar on the eve of what is known as the 9 days. Tomorrow, Monday, that is, of course, August the 5th, begins the most serious and thoughtful and days of really levels of mourning in the next coming 9 days. What's it all about? What are we supposed to do? What we're not supposed to do? And much more. So let's get right into it as we say good morning to Jeannie Marie. So the question that has been on people's minds, is it appropriate to be celebrating the death of an arch terrorist? Is that a Jewish value? Here is one of the good responses. You've asked what I could only call a very Jewish question. For one thing, it's so typically Jewish to feel guilty about rejoicing. I remember the story about a young man who receives a telegram from his mother. She says, "Start worrying. Details to follow." So anyway, aside from that, the wisdom of our sages on this topic runs deep and thick. When do you know a wisdom is deep? When, at first glance, it seems full of contradictions. Let's start with Solomon the Wise. He writes, "When the wicked perish, there is joyful song." Sounds pretty unequivocal. That's it. Until you find another statement of the same author, King Solomon himself, in the same book, where he says, "When your enemy falls, do not rejoice, and when he stumbles, let your heart not exult, lest Hashem sees and be displeased, and turn his wrath away from him." Guess what? In the Talmud, it mirrors this very same tension. We find, when the wicked perish from the world, good comes to the world. As the verse says, when the wicked perish, there is joyful song. While in the same volume, in the Talmud, has already told us that when the Egyptians were drowning in the Sea of Reeds, the angels wanted to sing. And what did God say to them? "The work of my hands is drowning. Human beings are drowning in the sea and you want to sing." We aren't the first to note these paradoxes and much more. Now is not the time to list every resolution suggested, and there are many. Instead, let's get straight to the heart of the matter. And I want to say welcome to Mark Pintel, who is joining us all the way from, I believe it is, Palm Beach Gardens. Unbelievable. Let's get straight into the heart of the matter. What is so terrible, after all, about celebrating the death of a wicked evildoer? Why would you even think to think of it as being negative to rejoice that the man who himself rejoiced over the demise of so many others and connived ingeniously to bring destruction and terror across the globe should now be removed from it. I mean, why not? Why not be happy? Is it so horrible to feel happy that the world has just become a better, safer, and happier place? No, it's not. That's perfectly legit. On the contrary, someone who is not celebrating at this time is apparently not so concerned about the presence of evil upon our lovely planet. Those who are outraged by evil are carrying now smiles upon their face. The apathetic don't give a hoot. If so, when Pharaoh and his henchmen, who had enslaved our people for generations, mistreating them with utmost cruelty, drowning our babies and beating workers to death, when they finally being drowned in the sea, why would not God himself rejoice? Simple. Because they are the work of my hands. Everyone is created by God. For this, they are magnificent and a terrible loss at the same time. And then, as another prophet put it, as I live, says Hashem, I do not wish for the death of the wicked, but for the wicked to repent of their ways so they may live. For the same reason, Solomon tells us not to rejoice over the fall of your enemy. If that's the reasoning you are celebrating, because he's your enemy, that you have been vindicated in a personal battle, then how are you better than him? His wickedness was self-serving, as is your joy. But to rejoice over the diminishment of evil in this world, that we have done something of our part to clean up the mess, that there has been justice, what could be more noble? That, after all, was the sin of many of these terrorists. They recognize God. They are often deeply religious persons. They pray to God 5 times a day and thank him for each of their nefarious achievements. The sin of the terrorists is to refuse to recognize the divine image within every human being. I'm going to repeat that. Terrorists refuse to recognize the divine image within every human being. To deny the value of God himself, that God himself places upon the work of his hands, which means basically to deny the value of every human being. To them, this world is an ugly, dark place, constructed only so that it can be obliterated in some final, destruction. And they are ready to help it on its way. With that sin, all the worship and the religiosity, of course, is rendered worthless. So there's an irony of it all, the depth and the beauty that lies in the tension of our Torah. If we celebrate that a person was killed, guess what? We are now stooping to his realm of deprivation. Yet if we don't celebrate the elimination of evil, we demonstrate that we simply don't care. We are not angels. An angel, when it sings, is filled with nothing but song. An angel, when it cries, is drowned in its own tears. But we are human beings. We can sing joyfully and mourn both at the same time. We can hate the evil of a person while appreciating that he is still the work of God's hands. In this way, the human being, not the angel, is the perfect vessel for this wisdom of the Torah. Thank you so much, everybody. As we say good morning to Dr. Eitan Kolshevsky, thank you for your comments. And to Rick Bullock, thank you, Rick. Where are you watching us from? Let us know where you are, so the whole world can let them know that we have some wonderful friends all over the world. As we say, welcome, of course, to everybody looking at listening to us on the radio, 90.3 FM, a great station around all week. Wonderful young men and women take the leadership role here at this station, and I commend them and salute them. Thank you so much. Before we get into other important issues, I'd like to share with you, put it into perspective, that on the Jewish calendar, we're going through what is known as the 3 weeks. 3 weeks. During the 3 weeks, as it's known, during this time, we spend extra time contemplating, and boy, do we have plenty of opportunity, sadly. We have plenty of time to recognize the less than perfect state of the world and how we improve it by increasing in our mitzvot, deeds of goodness and kindness. In keeping with the verse, Tzion b'mishpat tipateh, Zion will be redeemed by law and her returnees by charity. The Rebbe of righteous memory, the Chabad Rebbe, Rabbi Schneerson, urged that during these 3 weeks, we observe it by increasing in giving of charity and learning Torah, and especially those sections of Torah that deal with the building of the Holy Temple. I bring to your attention tonight, Sunday into Monday, is the first day of the month of Menachem Av. These first 9 days of this coming month, and also the morning of the 10th, are days of acute mourning for the destruction of the first and second temple, and many other events that happened on the 9th of Av, including the beginning of the First World War, the beginning of the crematoriums, the exile of the Jewish people in 1492 from Spain, and many other events that include, of course, most currently, what happened on October 7th, and many other things that we have on our mind. I mentioned to our congregation that it took me a while to appreciate that my support and caring for those who were abducted, the hostages in the Gaza, and all the terrible pressure now in the land of Israel, we don't help by simply regurgitating the news or knowing what's happening over there. That's not the way we help our brothers and sisters. There's a much deeper way of doing that, and that is to increase in our Torah and mitzvahs and recognize the bond that we all have with each other. So what do we do during these 9 days? I'm just going to briefly tell you the things that we curtail in appreciation, and I encourage everybody to join I'm challenging myself. I'm challenging myself during these 9 days, as you will soon see, to, in a sense, lessen many things that I usually do, so that I feel identified more acutely with the challenges in the world, and particularly in the land of Israel. What do we do during this time? I share with you. During these 9 days, except for the Shabbos, during tomorrow night, that means Monday and Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, we do not eat meat, including poultry. We don't drink wine. For during this period, the sacrifices and the wine libations in the Holy Temple ceased. The exception to this rule are the meat and wine that we consume on the Shabbat, or as part of a meal that celebrates a mitzvah, such as if you were to go to a circumcision or a bar mitzvah or the completion of a tractate of Talmud. So during these 9 days, in identification with the mourning aspect of yesteryear in our times, we are not eating meat or wine during this week. There are those, all of us are careful of the clothes that we wear, in terms of not buying new ones, and certainly not just wearing the typical clothes that we have. We do not swim or take a bathe for pleasure purposes. Remodeling or expanding a home is put on hold for these 9 days. We do not plant trees to be used for shade or fragrance, as opposed to you are allowed to plant fruit trees. And I know here on Long Island, everybody during this heat goes out there and puts up trees. Also, another important thing we don't do during this time is buy, sew, weave, or knit new clothing, even if they will be worn after the 9 days. Of course, there are exceptions to this rule. If you will miss a major sale, or if the garment will be unavailable later, you can buy it. For the purpose of a mitzvah, such as purchasing new clothing for a bride or a groom, preparing for a wedding, little after that time, after the Tisha B'Av, it would be allowed. Also, we also are careful in cutting our nails during these 9 days. And the Sephardic custom is to observe these stringencies regarding bathing only in the week of Tisha B'Av. Now, my friends, you may say, what are rabbis telling us all these things? I'm telling you, I'm sharing with you that these 9 days are very serious ones. And I think that it would be important for us to identify and take on the challenge of at least do something less these 9 days in the areas that I've just discussed. This is from Jewish law, in our observances of during this time. For example, sanctification of the moon, which we do every month, is postponed till after Tisha B'Av. There's no law forbidding traveling during the 9 days. However, we do customary refrain from traveling during these days unless it's absolutely necessary. So most people don't go out for their vacations during these 9 days, to be careful. One may become engaged to be married during this period, but no celebration should be held until after Tisha B'Av. Now, also very, very interestingly, this coming Shabbos, which is the Shabbos, the Saturday right before Tisha B'Av, the saddest day in the Jewish calendar, has a special name. It's called Shabbos Chazon, the Shabbos of vision, Chazon. The Shabbos reading of the prophets begins with the words Chazon Yeshayahu, the vision of Isaiah regarding the destruction of the Holy Temple. Along comes a legendary Hasidic master, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev, and he explains that on this Shabbat, the Shabbos right before the saddest day, every one of us in our soul are shown the vision of the third temple, the Holy Temple, that will be rebuilt in Jerusalem. The purpose of this vision is to arouse within every one of us the yearning to actually see this edifice which we were built by God, and to do everything we possibly can by increasing our mitzvahs to make this dream realized in the real, concrete way. So while this vision may not be sensed with our physical eyes, our soul certainly experiences this vision, and it affects the person on the subconscious level. You know, how do we feel ourselves during this time? I share with you a story about a certain level of uncomfortableness that we should have during these 9 days. As I say good morning to Linda Zellickson, Davida Zellickson, Miriam Odell, David, and I really want to commend Richard Rottenberg, who I know very well for many years, and he's beside himself right now because he just found out that he can't sit and knit during these 9 days. I think, Richard, you're nitpicking. Okay, don't laugh too loud because it does interrupt our internet. So, anyway, and I want to tell you, everybody, I love people who have a sense of humor. There's too many people who are so serious. You make a joke, they get bent out of shape. Anyway, this is the story. You know, it's a perspective. It's a perspective. We're talking about Rabbi Dov Ber, who is the Maggid of Mizrich. He was the student who took over the Baal Shem Tov, and from him came all the many students who populated the European continent, from Russia to Poland, and started their own groups of Hasidic perspectives, Hasidic groups. And but he himself was very, very poor. Meals, when they had food, was a crust of bread. The furniture he lived with was a hovel with assortments of wooden planks and stumps. Once he was asked by his students, by his disciples, Rebbe, why is it that you must endure such abject conditions, while others, much less deserving than yourself, enjoy the blessings of God's world? And Reb Dov Ber replied with a story. A wealthy man once married off his daughter. The father of the bride was a most generous and charitable man, and he desired to share his joy with the unfortunate. So he put up notices in all the synagogues, in the poorhouses, in the area, inviting every beggar and vagabond to partake of the wedding feast. The day of the wedding arrived, and hundreds of beggars took their places around the tables laden with the best and the most tastiest of food that money could buy. But then tragedy struck. The bride suddenly fell ill. The greatest doctors were rushed to her side, but to no avail. The bride died, and the wedding was transformed into mourning. At that point, the beggars divided were divided into two groups, two camps. One group said, hey, the food's on the table. Who knows when, if ever, another such opportunity to fulfill our stomachs will present themselves. Surely our host would not want all this delicious food to be wasted. If we remain hungry, would that alleviate his grief? The second group of beggars, however, would not touch the food that lay before them. How can we eat and drink, they cried, when the one who provided all of this is in mourning? How can we enjoy a feast whose purpose and cause has been transformed into a calamity? And the Rebbe, Reb Dovber, continued, the world is a wedding feast. What does it mean, a wedding feast? A world was created for relationships, for the sake of God's union with all of us. Life is all about connections. Am I right, everybody? Everybody knows about connections. It's like a wedding. But then what happens to the wedding you're invited was disrupted. The nuptial home, the holy temple was destroyed. Yes, the feast is there for the taking, but the soul is devastated. Its provider is in mourning. There are those who have no difficulty enjoying what they can of the feast. And the Rebbe went on as he spoke to his students, I, however, belong to the second group of beggars. I cannot bring myself to partake of the leavings of this aborted wedding. My friends, when I read this story, I said, I want to share it with everybody. If we really care about what's going on in the world in general, and about the hostages in Israel, and all the pressure on the land of Israel, and we can go through the next 9 days just eating and drinking and doing everything we want, and fulfilling what we think is our requirement of the support of Israel by listening to the news and regurgitating all the negative stuff, that's one way of looking at it. But if we really feel identified in a real way, I'm talking about real, no fake, phony, and fraud and making out that we care by just reading the news, but by really changing something in our life in these 9 days in a serious way. As we mentioned, not to eat meat and not to drink wine during the weekdays, and to learn and to increase and support whatever it may be in a real way, that is showing support and love. And I thank you, Dr. Kilshevsky, for all those watching us on Facebook. Feel free to read the important comments made by all of us watching. I share with you another a concept, the same idea. Rabbi Yossi tells us in the Ethics of the Fathers that all of our deeds should be for the sake of heaven, which is a very, very amazing challenge. But everything we do, eating, sleeping, talking, everything we do must have a higher goal. The Talmud tells us, Rabbi Hanina, of a great teacher, Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa, he once watched all the people going up to Jerusalem, and they were taking with them fine gifts and offerings for the temple. He longed to go with them and bring some wonderful gift. Alas, Rabbi Hanina, this rabbi I'm talking about from the Talmud, was very poor. He had nothing to offer to God. And he wandered sadly. He was upset about it, till he was alone in the desert, in a deserted field. Suddenly he saw an interesting stone on the ground. It was very large and beautiful. And you know what? An idea came to him. I will carry this stone to the holy temple as my gift to God. Rabbi Hanina ran home to get his tools. He cut the stone and polished it until its colors shone beautifully. At last it was fit to decorate the holy temple. But how could he ever get it there? He looked for someone to help. It was so big, he would need 5 strong men to carry it, and they would have to be paid. What was Rabbi Hanina to do? He barely had 5 gold coins as his whole life's savings. Suddenly 5 men appeared as if out of nowhere, and they said, "We will help you carry the stone. Can you give us each 1 gold coin?" That's exactly how much money Rabbi Hanina could afford. "Yes," he agreed at once, "I will give you that much." "You must also help us carry the stone," the men said. As the men lifted the stone, Rabbi Hanina placed his hand underneath it too. It felt miraculously light. Suddenly, he found himself in Jerusalem, standing right there in the Holy Temple. "Here, I'll pay you," he said to the men. But at that moment, they'd all vanished. Rabbi Hanina hurried to speak with the sages who sat in the temple, and he told them the story. They responded, and they smiled. "Those men must have been angels sent to help you." So Rabbi Hanina gave the money to the poor Torah students instead, the 5 golden coins, and thanked God for helping him. You see, this story teaches us many interesting lessons. Nowadays, it is in our hands to make a difference in this world. Every single one of us. There's a story I told in shul yesterday about a wonderful individual who there's an organization called it's skipping my mind right now, but it's centered in Israel, and it helps to bring people who live in Germany who come and volunteer their time to help Holocaust survivors in the land of Israel. We're talking about Gentiles, Germans, who take off time and come to Israel to help a Holocaust survivor. A Chabad emissary met one of these individuals, and he explained that he comes twice a year from Germany through this organization, and he gives back by helping Holocaust survivors. He himself comes from a family of Nazis, and none of them want to deal with the issue. And he explained to the shliach, to the emissary, that he wants to do his piece to try to right the wrongs of what happened in Germany way back during the time of the Holocaust. What does he do? He goes to Israel twice a year. He's a painter. He says, "That's all I know. And I go and paint the houses of elderly Holocaust survivors." And of course, the shliach was very impressed with him and thanked him for his service. My friends, all of us have so many talents, so many things that we do. And to lend a hand in a real way to be helpful, not just to ourselves, but to be bigger than ourselves, is what is needed of all of us today. To help bring Mashiach, to bring a world that's filled with goodness and kindness. Now that might seem like an impossible, difficult task. How can we ever do it? Well, we must take a lesson from this Rabbi Hanina, the story I've just mentioned. If we really want a world filled with goodness and kindness, we all need is to try. Even if all we need to do is to put our hand to the rock, as this rabbi did. You know what? God will make it possible for us. And before we know it, we will find ourselves all in the right place, together with Mashiach, with all of us together. Now, I also want to point out that tomorrow, this is something that all of us know very well. Tonight is Rosh Chodesh, the beginning of a Jewish month of Menachem Av. Typically, when the Torah speaks about all of our greats, we never mention the day of their passing, the day of the passing of any of the great leaders mentioned in the Torah. We do not know the day when Adam and Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and Joseph and Sarah or Rachel passed away. We don't know the day. Even Moses' day of passing is omitted not mentioned in the Torah. There's only one single exception. Aaron, the older brother of Moses, the high priest of Israel. His death is recorded in the Torah portion with a date. Obviously, we have mentioned many times of the passing of our great leaders, but the actual date is not listed in the Torah itself. And only exception is the passing of Aaron. And we read it only yesterday, where it says that Aaron, the priest, ascended the mountain, Mount Hor, at the behest of God. It was the 40th year after the Jewish people left the land of Israel. And guess what? When did he go up and pass away? On the first day of the 5th month. When do you think the first day of the 5th month? Is this Monday, the first day of the 5th month in the Jewish calendar, considered from Nisan the month of Av. So we know that the only date, the yahrzeit date in the Torah, is of Aaron. Why would that be? Even his own siblings, Miriam and Moses, we don't see the exact date in the Torah. So why was his passing enshrined in the biblical text? Yes, we do know of the dates, but it's all found out in all kinds of calculations and other parts of the Torah. But clearly in the Bible itself, the only date mention of a person passing away is Aaron, which is coming up this Monday, the first day of the Jewish month of Av. What is more, the date of his death is not mentioned in the actual story of his passing, which is a few weeks ago, where it would belong, but it's specifically this week in the portion of Maseh, Numbers chapter 33. And it's mentioned while discussing the 42 journeys of the Israelites traveling in the desert en route from Egypt to the Promised Land. It is in this context, apparently not relevant to the discussion, that the Torah takes a detour. It mentions all the many, many locations. They were here, they were here, they were here. It just mentions the name, doesn't tell us all the events that took place, except for this, when it mentions that they journeyed from Kadesh and they came to this mountain at the edge of the land of Edom. Oh, you should know that Aaron, this is the place where Aaron ascended the mountain where he passed away, and it was the first day of the month. How come? Seems out of place. It should have been, when we actually talk about the event when he passes away, tell us it was the date, what date it was. Why would it be included in part of the journey's recounting of this week? And the Rebbe once offered a very moving insight, demonstrating to all of us the timelessness of Torah to our times. Aaron, as we know, was the ultimate peace lover and peacemaker amongst us. As Hillel says in the Ethics of the Fathers, let us all live to be like the disciple of Aaron, a lover of peace, a pursuer of peace, one who loves the creatures and draws them close to Torah. Aaron dedicated his life to bringing peace between rivals and quarrel spouses. When the Torah describes his death, it says, interesting, the whole congregation saw that Aaron had passed, and the entire house, everybody, wept for 30 days. It focuses on the entire Kol Beis Yisrael, the entire house. When Moses passes away, it says that the sons of Israel wept for Moses. There was a greater loss. The Torah makes a big difference between how many mourned the loss of Moses as opposed to the entire congregation. Everybody was upset mourning the loss of the entire of Aaron. Why the distinction? And Rashi explains, both men and women. For Aaron, everybody was involved because Aaron had pursued peace. He promoted love between disputing parties and between husbands and wives. The Talmud relates that 80,000 young men who were all given the name of Aaron came to eulogize Aaron after his passing. Can you imagine? 80,000 young men had that name Aaron. They were the children born from parents who wanted to get divorced. And Aaron saved their marriages, 80,000. They named their babies Aaron in tribute to the person who saved their marriage and allowed these children to be born. This means that over 40 years in the wilderness, Aaron restored peace and trust among 80,000 couples. He must have been one busy marriage therapist. In addition to serving as the high priest, doing the service in the sanctuary, and being a prophet and a teacher himself, he was busy teaching couples how to heal and to trust. Following the decades of trauma in Egyptian exile, this must have been a grueling task. But his love and his empathy managed to save marriages. His efforts were rewarded in kind with the appearance of the clouds of glory that served as a unifying force, molding the entire encampment in a very cohesive unit. Now we understand, on a homiletical level, why the yahrzeit of Aaron is specified in the Torah. The first day of the 5th month of the year, which is the Hebrew month of Menachem Av, which starts tonight. 1,500 years after the death of Aaron, the first of Av would usher in the period known in Jewish law as the 9 days, referring to the first 9 days of this Hebrew month that starts Monday all the way through the end of the following Tuesday. These 9 days are a time dedicated to the mourning of the destruction of the first and second holy temples, which were both burnt down on the 9th day of Av, the first in 586 BCE and the second by Rome in 70 CE, and of course all the way down to current times. All of this is included in our mourning thought process and our observances, all the way down, of course, including the current events, October the 7th and beyond. The Talmud states, the second temple, why was it destroyed? And the Talmud gives a very startling answer: because we harbored baseless hatred towards each other. This was also true on a political level. The Romans exploited the infighting that we had to defeat Judea. During the First Temple era, too, it was an ongoing conflict between the two kingdoms of Israel that weakened the nation, and violence among us spelt disaster, as the prophets explicitly warn about. So, says the Talmud, God provides a remedy before the disease. Refuah koidem lamaka. Before any challenge in life, even what's going on in the land of Israel today, God provides the energy to deal with it. The yahrzeit of a person, the day of passing, the day when their life's journey is completed, is a day in which their energy and light is manifest uniquely, very much felt and potent in the world itself. So tonight, Monday, so on the first day of Av, when we usher in the 9 days of grief over our discord and hatred and the problems, the Torah tells us that we have a yahrzeit of Aaron. During this coming Monday, we think about Aaron, who's a great peacemaker and unifier. A day in which we can all connect with Aaron's energy and legacy of love and unity to repair and to heal the rifts and mistrust that has been caused by our exile, and to usher in a new era of redemptive consciousness. This is why the Torah places the day of the yahrzeit in the portion of Maseh, which, according to Jewish tradition, is always read on or right before the very day of his yahrzeit, the first day, Rosh Chodesh of Menachem Av. It is during this time of the year the Torah wants to empower us with the energy of Aaron to restore cohesion, trust, and love amongst us all. On every first day of Av, as one can smell the flames of destruction, Aaron casts upon us his power of love, reminding us that we are capable of transcending our fears and our egos and creating a revolution of love among our eternal but fragmented people. If baseless hatred was the cause of our destruction, baseless love will create our redemption. I want to tell you a story. Moshe Tzur, he's a good friend of Dr. Kolshevsky's. They're on first-name basis. Moshe Tzur is an Israeli Air Force veteran who has a skill of activism and leadership. He returned to Judaism later in his life. And at a visit to the U.S. in 1970s, he visited the Rebbe. The Rebbe asked him what was he doing to help the Jewish people and the community. Moshe was not that excited about getting involved. And the Rebbe asked him, why is the heart of a human being on the left side? Everything important in Judaism is on the right side. We put on tefillin with the right hand. We put the mezuzah on the right side of the door. We shake hands with the right hand. We hold the Torah scroll on the right side. Joseph wanted the blessing of his right arm of his father for his oldest son. In the temple, they always walked to the right. So why is the heart, the organ responsible to giving us vitality, on the left? The Rebbe shared his vintage answer. Your heart is indeed on your right side, because what is the true function of a heart? To feel and experience the heart of the person standing in front of you. And for the person in front of you, your heart is on the right side. When your heart is linked with others, then indeed your heart is on the right side. Moshe continued to relate his story. This message really speaks to me. This is Moshe, the Air Force, Israeli Air Force veteran. This message really spoke to me, and I adopted it as the center of my philosophy of life. Since then, my mission in life has been to reach the heart of everyone that I meet. I returned to Israel and I established 2 important yeshivot. One yeshiva is called Eish HaTalmud. It is the yeshiva high school with almost 200 boys enrolled. The other is called Torat Moshe with about 95 boys. I've also, he continued, established 4 kolelim study groups for married men with almost 120 enrolled. In addition, he says he founded an organization in support of poor families for Rosh Hashanah and Passover. These are people who don't have much income, and we help them with food and money. All of this because of the words of the Rebbe, that the key is to help others, which changed my perspective on life and shaped my life's mission. As Israel fights for its existence, we need this love and unity more than ever. We may not all agree on everything, but we must be here for each other like never before. Which also brings us to an important existential question. I want to say welcome to Millie Maggid. Wow. Millie Maggid, all the way. Wow. Thank you for your comments. My very best wishes to dear Larry and your entire family. Have you ever paused in the middle of a hectic day and wondered, what am I doing all this for? Such moments often prompt more profound, sometimes challenging questions about our identity beyond the workplace. When we meet someone, we typically say, "Who are you?" And then, in typical fashion, "What do you do?" The response is typically a job title. I'm a lawyer. I'm an accountant. I'm in finance. I'm a creative, or I'm a teacher. Or, God forbid, I say I'm a rabbi. This reflects a societal norm where occupation defines identity. I ask somebody, "What are you?" "I'm a doctor." Hello? But who are you without your job? Does your work define you, or is there more to you than meets the eye? So I would put it in this kind of way. Are we physical beings on a spiritual journey, or are we spiritual beings on a physical journey? A rabbi recently asked me, are we bodies with souls, or souls that chose bodies? This aligns with the belief that our eternal souls choose physical forms. For what reason? For earthly missions, suggesting that we are really spiritual beings on a physical journey. Mothers who bring life into the world may feel this spark, naturally sensing the profound link between the physical and spiritual. Let me illustrate this point, and imagine this unusual metaphor. A refrigerator, aware of its physical form, questions the electricity. Where do you go when they unplug me? Electricity, fundamental and omnipresent, replies, I don't cease. I continue my journey elsewhere. Recognizing ourselves as electricity suggests that our essence is fundamentally really spiritual, temporarily residing within the physical. In Judaism, the concept of the soul, or neshama, is not a singular entity, but comprises the soul that we all have, actually comprises of 5 distinct levels, each contributing uniquely to our spiritual and physical being. Let me quickly give you the names of the 5 parts of the soul that we all have. One is called nefesh, the life force that sustains our body, grounding us in the physical world. You could put it bluntly, that's the biological side of us, of every human being. Then you have ruach. That's the spirit that fuels our emotions and our mind, shaping our interactions and experiences. And that's in our hearts. Then we have the word neshama, That's the core soul, central to our moral values and divine connection that sits in our head. Then you have two upper ones called Chaya, the essence that urges us to seek deeper spiritual awareness, and Yechida represents oneness, symbolizing our ultimate union with the divine. Judaism teaches that each soul has a unique mission to improve the world. This ties into our quest for purpose beyond our jobs. The soul's journey doesn't end with death. It continues spiritually, like electricity, continuing its journey elsewhere. Consider love, truth, and subatomic particles. These forces are invisible and intangible, yet they are undeniable and integral to our existence. We experience profound emotions, live by ethical truths, and consist of particles too small to detect, yet we never question their reality. Like electricity, in the example I'm giving, these elements exist beyond the physical boundaries. Every day we hustle for money, for food, for shelter, for clothing and health. These are essential, but they're just the basics. Yet subtle details, because where we live, our vacations, the car we drive, can unintentionally broadcast our financial status. We all know. People judge you by where you live and where you go on vacation and what kind of car you have. These interactions suggest we often measure our worth by external standards. I have a boat, I go fishing, I have a second house. Oh, but if we shifted our perspective to explore who we are beyond these metrics, we need to ask ourselves, what is my life's mission? What am I working towards? What is my calling? Am I living up to it? These questions define who we are and the paths that we ought to pursue. So, to say it bluntly, we are more than what we do. Authenticity lies beyond the hustle and the external successes. As an entrepreneur, my varied roles have taught me to see opportunities and solutions where others might see only problems. Challenges don't just happen. Guess what? They sharpen us. This inspired me to explore what it means to define ourselves beyond our daily roles. I love Shabbos, dear friends. I love meeting the wonderful congregants who come, the guests who come, and people who just stop by. And why? Because it's a day for us to stop and not look at ourselves by the jobs that we have and by the cars that we drive or whatever. That's not who we are. When you come to shul, it's an opportunity, at least as a community, to consider what unites us beyond all the stuff that we think makes us ganze machas. Like our ancestors who faced numerous challenges, today we too, in the modern society, embrace the need to be both physical and spiritual warriors. Warriors with an A. We need to find the comfort in the discomfort. One of my, I read a story about a person who loves boxing. And during a grueling session, his coach said, Who's not tired? When some hands went up, he said sharply, then you're not pushing hard enough. If you only drive your car at low RPMs, you'll never really see what it can handle. Somebody recently took me in their car, in their Tesla car, and showed me within, I don't know how many, a second or two, he was at 60 miles an hour. Wow, I felt, wow, my goodness. Ashrei Yoshrei, let's say hello to Stephen Epstein. He drives a Tesla. He has a Tesla. Have you ever seen, Kim, those Teslas now with the sharp edges? They look like the
Cybertruck.
Unbelievable! These trucks, they look so.
Oh, it's ugly.
Ugly. You can't.
I saw one like 2 weeks ago. I was like, oh my gosh, really ugly.
My wife told me she saw one and she thought there was like a tank.
That's what it looked like. It looks like a Hummer, sort of like in that.
But the contours
yes,
are so
it's crazy.
It's crazy. But it's so if you.
Definitely unnecessary. I can't imagine anybody has any need for that.
You know, Kim, you've convinced me. I'm not going to buy one of those things. I refuse.
I think that's a great
My
choice.
congregation said I should. Dr. Kilshevsky said I should go and buy one.
Wrong.
He's right. Okay, it won't be the first time. Anyway, you'll never really see. The same goes for training and life. You won't see any improvement if we don't push into that discomfort zone. Start getting, a rabbi once said, start getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Lean into that discomfort in all areas of your life and push past your perceived limits until it becomes the new normal. That's when there's really growth. That's when it really happens. This mindset resonates with me, especially during these rather very trying times for all of us around the world, especially in the land of Israel. It resonates with me very deeply. Physical and spiritual challenges are very much interconnected. Just as physical training builds strength through discomfort, the divine spark within our souls grows brighter through overcoming the adversities that we all face. Who would you want besides you in a crisis? Someone untested by hardship, or a capable, battle-hardened companion? While those who are untested aren't necessarily lacking, there's undeniable value in those who've proven life with resilience and experience and forged from the fires of adversity. Just as seasoned sailors hone their skills navigating stormy seas, facing challenges and strengthening our character and enhancing our capacity for spiritual leadership is the way to go. How can we grow spiritually if all we know is the easy path? So, finding solace in comfort, while challenges refine our souls, times of peace recharge our spirits, allowing us to reflect on our journey, to appreciate progress, and to cultivate gratitude. Comfort provides the balance to face future challenges with renewed strength and a refreshed perspective. Embracing comfort and discomfort helps us to maintain a balanced, fulfilling life, preparing us for what lies ahead. What defines ourselves beyond our roles, our jobs, and the positions we have in society? How many challenges can we say have shaped our journey? How do we find greater meaning beyond the daily grind? I'd love to hear from everybody out there. If you could share with us, you can send us an email, rabbiperl@chabadmanila.com. Tell us about a challenge that you may have had and how it strengthened you. Or quickly put in a post on our Facebook Live, and we'll be happy to share that with you, with everybody here. We just have a few moments in our program, and I wanted to share with you that many, many years ago, there was a young man, in the 50s that is, his name is Nochem Stillerman, and he used to deliver groceries from his father's store to the Lubavitcher Rebbe's mother, Rebbetzin Chana. And he was a little boy in the 50s. She would invite him into the apartment, tell him to sit, give him milk and cookies, and speak warmly with him. So he took the opportunity, and he asked the Rebbe's mother, what is the Rebbe's favorite prayer? Interestingly, I guess he hadn't seen Fiddler on the Roof, where, what's the famous prayer there? To keep the Tsar, anyone who's called the Tsar, keep him far away. But seriously, what is the Rebbe's favorite prayer? She says she didn't know, but promised to ask her son. When he came back, the next delivery, her answer was, you know what, my son, the Rebbe, his favorite prayer is, it's a very short prayer. It's the very first prayer that we say in the morning. Modeh ani lefanecha. Thankful am I before you, living and eternal King, that you have mercifully restored my soul within me. Great is your faithfulness. That's it, the young man said. Yes, she said, that's the Rebbe's favorite. This is a short, very simple prayer that every one of us, Jewish law directs us to say immediately upon awakening from the fog of sleep each morning. Later, of course, the purpose of that prayer is to make it a focal point profoundly throughout our day. The Rebbe discussed this prayer at great length back in December 13th of 1965, where he explored and explained how this particular prayer reflects the very essence of Chassidut. It was a very interesting presentation. When it was put into writing, it took over 17 pages with so many footnotes. It was an amazing presentation, but it went to what we're discussing today, to the essence of who we are, beyond the job and the way people think of us. And I share this very briefly because that essential prayer that is said even before we wash our hands, it's not simply because we don't mention God's name, but it reflects a deeper personality that goes beyond everything around us. Thank you, Ed Weinrub, for your beautiful points. And I want to share with you that Pintel Yid, that essential soul that we're talking about, that we thank God for, is on full show right now. You know, after what we saw October the 7th in 2003, that you can see that the power of Moed Ani inside of us continues to burn brightly in every one of us. Time won't allow for me to go to so many stories that are recently have been shared about what people were doing, Israelis, during that time. Let me see if I can very briefly, Kim, allow me to share this story over here. The story is of this highest part of the soul really clicks and is there at all times, and it was on full show during the October the 7th of how people responded and how it reflects the depth. And there's one particular Israeli soldier who wrote a letter before he went into the Gaza, and he said that he said like this: if you're reading this letter, then obviously I've lost my life, but I want you to know that I'm happy and grateful for the privilege that I have to defend our beautiful land and the beautiful people of Israel. In case something happens to me, I forbid you from sulking in sorrow. And he writes in his letter, I'm filled with pride and a sense of purpose, and I always said that if I had to die, I wish it would be in the defense of others and the state. My friends, that reflects the unbelievable power of the Moed Ani that we all have, all of us reminding ourselves of the importance of this prayer. May Hashem bless us all with an easy week, all the blessings. May these days of sadness and mourning be transformed into days of happiness and joy. Shalom, and have a wonderful week, everybody. Thank you.